Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name is John Bunn. Today I interviewed That Wedding Videographer Podcast, Jason and Danny, based in the UK. They just did a big wedding video summit, had 120 some odd guests in the UK. That market is exploding. It's doing so many good things, so many new educators, so many new filmmakers in that area. I just wanted to talk to them about their podcast, their journey. So many of the little tidbits are super helpful for you if you're trying to grow your business. So we're going to dive deep into just what they're doing, how they did it, what they're doing with their summit, that sort of thing. But throughout the conversation, we're coordinating those things that they've been doing with how you can help grow your business. So it's an episode you definitely want to check out. Enjoy their Scottish, Irish, their accents, whatever it is. It's fun to listen to them. We wish them nothing but the best, and we're really excited to hop into this week's episode. Before we do that, I do want to tell you about our friends over at VidFlow. I just delivered another gallery to my clients with VidFlow. It's a digital gallery where I can upload my final films and deliver to my couple in a way that's embedded into my website, where they can download the films in full resolution, where they can push play and watch them either on the computer or on a TV app on their phone. It's just an easy place that extends the experience for the couple. And so if you're interested in learning more about VidFlow, check out howtofilmweddings.com/VidFlow to see all the promos and the options. Tell them we sent you. That's all I have from my friends at VidFlow. Let's hop in with my friends, Jason and Danny. All right. Well, welcome That Wedding Videographer Podcast hosts, Jason and Danny. Why don't you guys say hello, introduce yourself? Jason, why don't you start? Who are you guys? Give us a little bit, and then Danny, feel free to chime in too.
Well, hello, everyone. I am Jason of Afterglow Wedding Films, one half of That Wedding Videographer Podcast based in Scotland.
Yep. I am Danny Rizzo, the other half of That Wedding Videographer Podcast, otherwise known as TWVP, and also own and run a wedding film business in Scotland, currently based in Glasgow, and that is Rizzo Films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is this podcast. It's been going for about a year now. Well, actually, a year today.
A year today.
To John there. It's been a year today. So, this is a podcast for wedding videographers. It started mainly for people in the UK, but we've got some international friends these days.
We do actually.
So.
Yeah, it's grown arms, because originally that was what it was for. It was for to focus on the UK market, and then we've got people from across the pond that are now joining in like regularly, which is just crazy. So yeah, it's been a fun year and a lot has happened in that year. But yeah, it's a cool thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, as a fellow wedding video podcast host, my story with you guys, of course, like parts of our mastermind group in the past, get to meet Jason. He came across the pond and hung out with us in real life, and I saw him with a shirt off too many times. I think so. But
Jason.
I remember in the middle of our mastermind year with Jason, him just deciding to go all in on his social media. It blew up. His business blew up, and like just watching him grow. And then now it's kind of cool as kind of the OGs, one of the OGs in the podcasting world here for wedding filmmakers, to like watch you guys come up and say, oh, cool, this is awesome that there are other people doing something similar yet different. And for me, about a year into podcasting with Nick, it was just like so many people were saying, well, I'm from the UK and this doesn't relate as well to us. It's different over here. And we're like, well, we're not from the UK. We don't know. So like, tell us more. And, we know the landscape of the global market, of course, but we're based in the States, and you guys see a need of, over in your part of the world. And obviously, as the internet does, you're going to grow and get new people all over. But to have that focus in the UK, I'm sure has been just incredible. You guys just did a summit that had over 100 filmmakers, which we'll talk about in a second. But tell me a little bit what's interesting, I think, and I want to ask you all this. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. And a lot of people are like, well, I couldn't start that thing. A lot of people that are better than you guys at filming weddings and better than me and Nick at filming weddings don't do something like this. So what crazy thing about you all, why did you decide we should do this, we could do this? And what would you say to people, not that are trying to start a wedding videography podcast, but like that are maybe afraid to take that step in the direction that they should go? What would you say to them? So kind of just a little bit of the genesis, the beginning of why you decided, let's do this. You guys were probably friends beforehand. So I'd love just to hear a little bit of that story. Go ahead, either Jason, Danny, either one of you guys.
Ironically, like we weren't that close before.
We knew of each other,
yeah,
and we'd hung out a little bit, but nothing like, not to the point where now we're almost like inseparable.
My wife hates him.
I think I'm referred to as the other wife at this point.
I don't know who I talk to more, to be honest, but
better be me.
But I mean, this podcast essentially stemmed from the conversations that Danny were having over the phone. Like, Danny would go off to a wedding in the morning from 7 o'clock and give me a call because he's driving 3 hours up north. And I would stupidly answer that call. And we would essentially have a 3-hour podcast, like just talking. But what we really liked talking about was the business end of filmmaking. We both love making films, but I don't think either of us ever saw ourselves as the best filmmakers in the industry. But we did thrive on learning the insides and outs of the business end of it. And I think we wanted to start a podcast that highlighted those features, because I think that the reason that we don't necessarily feel like imposter syndrome is because we don't tout ourselves as people at the top of the field, but we enjoy the conversations that running a business have.
I think there's also a point to be said. Yeah, definitely, we're not the best filmmakers in the world. Would love to be, but definitely not quite. I mean, I watch some people's work, especially guests that we got on, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm so inadequate. But I guess it's also kind of like playing to your strengths and stuff like that as well. Like Jason and I, although we're maybe not the best filmmakers in the world, have like created really thriving and what's the word? Successful wedding film businesses, certainly within the kind of our market. And I think we, as Jay said, we really, really loved like the business side of things, like, because as we all know, like running a wedding film business is not just all about creating epic films. There's so many other hats that you need to wear. And that's the bit that I think that we both felt that we were good at, and certainly good enough to like have an opinion on things. Hence the 3-hour conversations. And that's kind of like how part of it started. And then on one night after, was it like another film videographer kind of like meetup?
Christmas night out, yeah.
Yeah, Christmas night out. We went to a bar, and then we were in that bar till, what, 2 in the morning, maybe 2 a.m.
It was far too late.
It was far too late. We were drinking these cocktails that are known in Scotland called Venoms. So it's basically like a Blue Wicked WKD with orange juice and like Southern Comfort and vodka, but they serve it in a pint glass, and they're lethal. They get you very, very drunk. And they were like, "Oh, we should just start a podcast. We'll just start a podcast." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a great idea. Let's do that." And then we didn't really do much about it though for a while after that. Did we?
Imagine we did. We'd be so much poorer if we did start earlier. It's cost me a fortune since knowing you, getting a studio and all the cameras and the microphones and stuff. But no, we didn't really do anything for a while. We let it simmer for a bit, and then we decided, we'll get a studio. And even then, it still took almost a year after having the studio to launch the podcast, because that first recording is so, you have an idea of how you want it to sound. I mean, I've listened to so many podcasts and purchased so much education, same as you, and we have an idea as to like, okay, this is our version of that. What does that actually look like? And it turned out that we needed to think less about how we wanted it to sound and just go back to the natural phone calls, natural conversations. And that's kind of where, our style has kind of stemmed from. And I'd say, like, in terms of the imposter syndrome, what I've found since doing this for over a year is that the guests we have on that we're naturally like, in awe of, they feel exactly the same. They feel like they've got that imposter syndrome. They don't feel on top of the game. They've got struggles and they've got problems going on in their business. And every single episode you take a nugget away and you learn something from someone, and they can learn something from us. And I think that's why it's not really felt like an imposter type situation, more of a collaborative situation where you have a podcast, you build a community, and you'll all learn together. And that's what I've loved most about being a podcaster.
You're totally right, though. That's the common theme, I would say. You might find this as well, to some extent, John. But a lot of the guests that we get on do also have that imposter syndrome. Like, they feel it themselves just within their own kind of like filmmaking side of things. So I think that you almost take a little bit of comfort in that, to go, okay, we're not alone here. It's like normal feelings to be had. But I think if you let that get the better of you and you don't just start, because imagine we didn't start it.
I know, but you'd always worry about that first episode, like, how is it going to sound?
Yeah, totally.
So,
and it is a bit nerve-wracking, but you just need to start, because if you don't start, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Classic Michael Scott line. I like that. But yeah, like, I think that it's interesting, and I've had a unique view, and you're getting this unique view, which I don't take lightly. You know, we've interviewed hundreds of wedding filmmakers at this point at How to Film Weddings. You talk to these people and you see the similarities, and you realize a lot of the main difference between people that are out there and doing things and those that are wishing is that they just didn't take action. They didn't take the first step. And it's like, yeah, like, I adore the first episode of this podcast and how cringy it is for me to go back and listen to it, because I'm just like, oh, I've grown so much as an interviewer, as a person, and I hope I look back in a couple of years and cringe at myself today. Maybe not as much as I did in the beginning, but that's the same way with our wedding films. That's the same way with, the principles. The people that are doing the things are the ones that are going to bump into stuff, make mistakes, and then recalibrate and keep moving forward. And, making it past episode 5 to 10 is kind of the hardest thing as a podcaster. Once you've passed 2 or 3 months, you are one of the top 1% of podcasters in the world. And I think about that I added photography to my brand last year. And as it sits, I'm pushing 6 figures of bookings this year for just photography. And
Nice.
I know, thank you, humble brag, but like, I know photography, and I know, like, I've been doing it. My brand had done it before, and I had hired people, but like, I felt the push to do that. Like, I really wanted to creatively do it. And I was nervous, but I was just put myself out there. Hey, everybody, I'm adding photography. I have no photos to show. If you want a free session, let me know. Let me show you what I can do. And I just started building. And over the last 6 months, I've now pushed about 30 sessions, booked about 10 weddings. And now my feed is full of photography things. I've taken flash courses. I've taken, I'm learning. I'm doing mentor sessions with other photographers and learning. And Nick, after I joined, he's like, man, I started doing that. He was like, man, I wish that I could be like that. I wish I could just have an idea and go. And if you're, our audience out there, wedding filmmakers, photographers, planners, different people like that, advice to people maybe that you guys have on what it took to get going, and then maybe a little bit of the momentum now that you started to feel. Like, when did that start to, you got going, you got on your trip, you're on episode 1, you do episode 1, you do episode 2, you start moving. Maybe a little motivation for the work that went into it, and then maybe some of that momentum that you guys are starting to feel, especially after your summit.
Yeah, I think funny you mentioned that, obviously, like, about the whole kind of like 1% of podcasts, because we basically started with 5, so maybe that's the secret sauce. Just put 5 out from the start, and you're already in the top 1%. No, I mean, like, I don't think I think we knew it was going to be a lot of work. But I don't think we maybe fully appreciated, like, how much work it takes to put on a podcast week in, week out. But we knew that, because the whole reason why we started the podcast in the first place was, like you said before, about how there wasn't really maybe like a podcast specifically that spoke directly to the UK market. So we had this idea that we were going to, build something specifically for them that talked about the nuances, because it's very different, in comparison, just in the way that weddings go, how they run, the budgets, that they have over here and stuff. So we wanted to kind of like speak directly to that person. But yeah, we I don't think either of us really appreciated fully how much work it was going to be, because initially it was just us the first setup we had, we spent a little bit of money on the room and painted it this god awful blue colour that was just, it was terrible. And we had like orange sofas and stuff, and it looked like, I don't know if you're aware of the Scottish national drink, the only place in the world where Coca-Cola is not the most drank drink is Scotland, and it's because we all drink Iron Brew. Okay. And the colours are that kind of blue and orange, and it basically looked like we were sitting in Iron Brew's headquarters.
Yeah,
it was
our
terrible.
studio was an ode to Iron Brew.
Yeah, wasn't good. And then we realised that didn't work, so then we got the room painted again and got behind a desk, and then we just kind of just sat there, didn't we, and just chatted away.
I think because obviously our first episode went live in April, and I think to the outside it looked like, okay, so we've just walked into the room and we've recorded 6 episodes and we've put them out. But the night that you're talking about was actually in November of the previous year. We'd spent 6 months planning a launch, which sounds insane for the amount of like actual content that went out. But I think we suffered, just like everyone else suffers, from actually starting something and seeing it through, because everyone has that perfectionism. And we did have an idea that we wanted this to be right from the very beginning. But our studio setup has changed so many times. It's changed 3 times this year. It's changed. The branding's kind of obviously stayed the same, but...
Well, that was one thing we were sure to do from the off. We were like, we need good branding, because just from both of our... certainly from my background, but both of our kind of like businesses, because I was in kind of like sales and marketing and stuff like that before. So I was like, if we're going to start this, you can't just start it, part done. It has to look as if it's good to go, from the off.
I actually took that from Nick in your podcast, because I remember he had the same communication. It needs to be right from the beginning.
Yeah. Start as you mean to go on.
Start as you mean to go on. But
Right.
when you're looking to start something like this, people will have ambitions. I'm sure everyone who is in your audience has some sort of idea that, I'd like to do a YouTube, or I'd like to start a podcast, or even start photography. I mean, like, it's on my radar to think, it's something I should consider. But I feel like you never get to see the opportunities that are available to you unless you start. And the podcast has given us so many opportunities that I wouldn't have even foreseen had we not even started it. Mm-hmm. And you only really... like, it's never as hard as you make it out to be. It's I think the things that you think are the hardest turn out to be insanely easy.
Yeah, by saying it's hard work, it's like the time element, because it does take a lot of time, and obviously there's a bit of graft there. But I think it's the constant just showing up, week in, week out. That's the main driver for it.
Having each other definitely has been a motivator to kind of keep going, because we're both very similar in our ambition in what we want to do. We don't really differ from what direction we want things to head in. There's not really any butting in heads of that, so that obviously helps.
No lovers tiffs.
No lovers tiffs. So, and we both complement each other in terms of what we can bring to it. So, I think most kind of partnerships in business kind of have that.
Yeah, it's like a yin and yang.
Yeah,
because Jason does a lot. Like, he pretty much does like all the editing of the pod and stuff. And yeah, my background is kind of being like sales and sales management and marketing and stuff. So I've kind of dealt with maybe like more other side of things, maybe like sponsorships and stuff. So we complete each other in that sense.
Yeah, but I think when I see it through a year, like obviously that's been a year now, it doesn't really feel like it's been a year. All I've done is essentially gone to work every week. I've gone on, chatted with my mate. We found people that we like to talk to. We learn things each week. And in that sense, it doesn't feel like a chore. So the momentum that kind of builds over a year is you're constantly bringing people together, and that compounds. And we've seen it from the stats in our podcast that the stats are compounding and people are coming in, and now we're kind of building on that audience. So basically a year ago, we started rolling a ball down a hill, and we've just seen it grow. And you can only do that by turning up. I don't think anyone expects to start a podcast and then suddenly have this followership.
Yeah, overnight success. I think that's also a good driver for the two of us as well, because we are quite stats orientated as well. So see, when you see the numbers like on whatever your podcast host is, and you see, and we'll text each other and we'll be like, like, we just had a new record.
Yeah, that was a 2% increase in last week.
Oh, I remember those days. Yeah.
So, but it's exciting. It's exciting, and I think we're similar in that regard. So it kind of like works, and then whenever we've had a new record, and then we had a new record like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Remember that one? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? When will it end?
Before we get going any further in the episode, I do want to shout out our friends over at MusicBed. If you didn't know, Nick and I have been using MusicBed exclusively for over a decade with new AI tools and things like stems and beats per minute. MusicBed has helped us as wedding filmmakers shave a ton of time off of finding the perfect song for your wedding films. Not only that, they're bringing on indie artists and recording artists that are unique in creating actual good music for us to use in our wedding films. They're not clicky, they're not tracky, they're really, really great songs. It is the best in the industry for a reason. The reason that they pour so much time and effort is to help serve us, the wedding film community. So if you haven't yet, go over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed, check out some free trials. You can even download a few songs on their dime just to see how the process works. That's howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed. Now let's get back into the episode. I love hearing all that. And I think that, like you said, just turning up and showing up, and like some weeks are easier than other weeks. And it's like, there is a lot more work that goes into building a community than maybe the average listener would think. It's like, oh, you just set up cameras, record a podcast, put it out, that's it. But when Nick and I started in 2018, there were a couple other podcasts that had been out, or different channels, but we really, from the beginning, kind of similar to you all, were like, we don't know everything. We don't want to know everything. And I think that's the insecurity that you can see in other podcasts, not just wedding video podcasts. I'm not like shouting out any other wedding video podcast. I'm just saying in general, insecurity, and I was this in my younger days, is I know it all. I'm smart. I don't want to show any vulnerabilities, and people aren't drawn towards that. And when I started, like, even just the photography side of things that I'm doing, it's like, hey, prices are going to be lower because I haven't done weddings for photo in a long time. Or, hey, if you'll book me, you're going to get this rate because you're my first photo booking. I wasn't pretending to be something that I wasn't. And so the first booking, paid me X amount of dollars, but now if somebody books me, it's double that. And so I'm like, you got a discount because you trusted in me early. But that whole motivator of not just trying to put yourself out there as like, I know everything, I've got everything figured out. Like, you're showing, we don't think we're the best wedding filmmakers. There's a humility that comes to that is appealing to people, because they're like, oh, this is two guys that I could go grab a beer with, or a pint, or whatever. I could go hang out with these guys. And so I think that the willingness to show up, to have a plan, to know where you're aiming at, whether you're starting a podcast or you're doing something with your wedding video brand, it's like, I know the direction that John Bunn Films is going in. You know which direction Rizzo Films is going in, or Afterglow Film. Like, your market, who you're heading towards, and you go and you make that plan and you work the plan. And it can get mundane, it can get boring, but if your motivators are correct, who you want to serve, why you want to serve them, the core of, you want to take care of your family, you want to, build something that's not just hand to mouth. I'm shooting and editing. You're building a community. Like, those things will motivate you and get you to a place to where it's like, yeah, this is fun. This is enjoyable. I want to do this. And the statistics are so fun for me too. I love looking at our numbers and being like, oh my goodness, record month, that kind of thing, or, paying attention to the dollars or whatever. And that's in both my brands, the video brand as well as the podcast. And like, for me, I can tell somebody's going to be successful if they have humility, like you guys are doing. You're not saying we're the smartest guys. You're relatable. They're willing to put in the work, and they're paying attention to where they're heading. And if you think about that as a wedding filmmaker, apply that same knowledge to your wedding film brand. Where are you going? Are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to do the things? And are you couple? And that recipe equals success. And so I would love to hear from you guys. You're 1 year in today. Couple weeks back, you just hosted an incredible event. Why don't you just tell me why you decided to do the event and paint a picture, because I know that a lot of wedding filmmakers know what it is, but why did you try to do and why did you decide to do that Wedding Videographer Summit? And just kind of give me maybe the genesis of that too. Like, when did you decide to do that? How did you pull it off? What was the goal? Just any details that you want to go. Jason, you're smiling. You can go ahead and start first.
I'm like, how did you pull it off? Oh, good question. No,
We're still figuring that one out.
I think, much the same as to why the podcast started is because I've been fortunate enough to go on workshops and retreats around the world. That I kind of chose that as my investment rather than purchasing a lot of gear. I chose education in the first few years of my business, and I always wished something like that would be here, or something something along those lines would be here, or a podcast would be kind of focused on on what my direct struggles are, and that was obviously the same as Danny. And as we were kind of going throughout the year, we've noticed as well there were a few more other UK-based podcasts starting up. There was other sorts of education popping up in the UK. It's an incredibly exciting time to be a wedding videographer in the UK, and we were away on a bus, and I remember just turning it down and saying, "It needs to be, if we're gonna do like an event." Because we'd always spoke about maybe doing an event sometime in the future.
Yeah, it was. To be honest, if it hadn't been for that time, we probably wouldn't have done it. Because I was kind of like, no, I think we should hold off on doing an event because I think we've not even hit a year yet with the podcast. Like, I guess it was that imposter syndrome thing kind of kicking in.
I literally said to you, invite 4 people to a room. How hard could it be?
That was famous last words.
That honestly, I wish I could get that tattooed on me somewhere. Because that was just the beginning. Like, so that night we kind of said, right, who do we want? What can we make this look like? So that must have been October or something.
Yeah,
was it? Yeah, October. Yeah. So we set about checking a dream list of people that we'd like. We had been at an event in the UK. It was before. Yeah, we went to the event after that.
Yeah.
Yes, went to the event after that. And spoke to a bunch of videographers there who we thought were awesome and wanted to hear from them. And and then
it just kind of spiraled from there, because then we were like, okay. So we've spoke to a couple of people that we would want to speak at it, who are quite like influential in the kind of the UK kind of wedding filming scene. And we're like, okay, these people are agreeing to it, so we're gonna have to make this happen. Like, because we've said we can't just back out.
Yeah, but we were also like, as I said, I've been to a few retreats, a few workshops, and I know what I've got the most value out of. I know what I got the least value out of, and I think, I don't know if it was me or you that came up with the station break, but it was sort of a collective where it would be good to have hands-on practical activities to do whilst, also receiving the benefit of having talks. Like, because sometimes you can go to a workshop and it's just some people talking at you. Whereas I've enjoyed actually having kind of styled shoots or, talking to like, Sam Jacobson, for example, at your retreats, who's an expert in sales. So having the ability to go and talk to an expert as well as hear a talk from someone who's an aspiring educator in the industry, I thought we kind of thought that would be a perfect mix for our summit.
It was like because the podcast is quite like business orientated, we thought it would make sense we essentially called them like industry pros. So what we done was we would have our 4 speakers, who were videographers. Those 4 speakers ended up being Adam Wing from Adam Wing Films, really highly regarded wedding filmmaker in the UK, has been in the education space for quite a while. Greg Burnett from GB Wedding Films, who's been a bit of a social media powerhouse. And then Joss Bosson from Luna de Mail Studio, who actually only just started a few years ago, but he's already won like the Love Stories TV award for like best cinematography for his like Como film. That thing definitely made me feel inadequate watching that thing. And then finally Matt Johnson, because everybody loves Matt.
Yeah, I think Matt was kind of like on our list saying, yeah, we could ask him if he'd come over, because I always had this impression that we'd like in the UK we'll come over to you guys. like, would you come to us? Like, would you come over to the UK? Like, it's a long way away. It's a small little island, a far way away. So we didn't actually know if people would come over. But
no, but Matt took a chance on us. I think you could see that we were the real deal. Would obviously put in all the work, for the, at that point, 9 or 8 months or something like that with the podcast, and they could see the community kind of like growing around it. So we got on a call, and yeah, he was game for coming over, which we're eternally thankful for. Because yeah, he was just brilliant. Just getting to meet him in the flesh after watching him on YouTube for so long. But then the other part, which of the summit, which Jason was talking about, was the industry pros and the station breaks, and that was we invited branding and web design expert Sophie, a copywriter John, and a Google and Meta Ads expert Michaela, and they would basically just be there for these kind of like 1 hour, almost like networking breaks where they could go and speak to them and dip in, because if somebody, for instance, hasn't got their copywriting sorted for the website, they're going to want to go and speak to John. But if they're totally clued up in Google and Meta Ads, they probably don't need to go and speak to Michaela, but they might want to speak to Sophie about brand and web design. And that, and there was a headshot photographer there. Turns out we should have had 2 there because the headshot guy
people love headshots.
He was quite busy. But that format of the day, by breaking up the day into almost like have a talk, have a station break, have a talk, have lunch, have a talk, and then another station break in the afternoon, that was a bit of a risk because nobody had kind of done an event quite like that to our knowledge, certainly not in the UK, with those kind of station break ideas. And that was a bit, we were a little bit
nervous, for sure.
We were nervous about it because it hadn't been really done before. We hadn't seen it work before, but it turns out it was, if we've looked at our post-summit feedback, because we sent a survey out, and it was actually it was like the highlight of people, like one of the highlights of or the standout comments from people about how much they loved the station break format.
And I think we obviously decided to go for April or late March because our seasons tend to go from April to September is the main chunk. That's the UK's main wedding season. So
that's when there's light.
Yeah, when there's light, essentially, because it's just dark every other month. But we essentially tagged it as the adrenaline shot for your business at the start of the season because the day was going to have so much value. Maybe not every talk, maybe not every industry pro, but you're definitely going to leave that day with something, whether it's a headshot for your brochure or your Tinder profile, whatever you want to do. Or if you want to figure out, the people that got the most were, talking to the copywriting expert. A lot of people don't know you can get copywriting for your website. That was insane. Our Meta and Google Ads expert. You were definitely going to learn something that day and start your season. Plus, we gave loads of swag, as you do. We had a big, massive party at the end of the night. So it really, in our eyes, because this is going to be an annual thing now, we've now solidified a point where every videographer, potentially in the UK and beyond, has the ability to start their season in a big party in a way that you can take something away. And I'm just so proud that we're able to do that now.
Yeah, because it was a lot of work pulling it off, just everything, like all the different variables. Because we also had like a late addition to, so we had like a raft of sponsors for the event, which was awesome. We had Music Bed, VidFlow, Multiply Sound, Brideandgroom.video, as well, and the late kind of like addition to that kind of like sponsorship pool was Lumix. So I'm a Lumix shooter. I live and breathe Lumix. I've managed to convert him to Lumix. I'm that good. I've still got the sales in me after 15 years of doing it. But we managed to get Lumix on board. And that was great because we sorted out like models to come for like the model shoot and stuff as well. So people could test out the new cameras because the new S1R2 has just been launched.
That was the coolest part because they brought in a plethora of cameras that people could just go up, take away, choose what lens they wanted, go and shoot like the models and have them do whatever they want to do. We've taken all the cards, put that on a drive for people so they can see what the footage was like. But the trust that Lumix had, that people were just taking those cameras and walking around that venue, like it was some major trust.
And they gave out a free camera as well.
Oh, and they gave away a free camera. Yeah. So honestly, it was oh, it's such a high after running an event like that. I can imagine you must feel the same after, the events that you've run. But you see, you sometimes you stand there, like you weren't necessarily enjoying the day. You're just standing and looking around, and you're just watching that people are getting the value that out of that section that you designed. And that's what I spent all day doing. I was going in, listening into conversations, going, that's working there. And at the end of the day, I was just exhausted, but like it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
It's funny, the station break thing as well. I was quite nervous about going up the stairs because all the pros were up the stairs in like a little kind of balcony section. And one of our friends came over to me. He's like, have you been upstairs? And I'm like, no, I've not been upstairs. I don't really want to go upstairs. And he's like, come upstairs. And I'm like, oh, nobody's going to be up here. It's going to be like crickets. And I just walked up and I just seen all these people, gathered around these kind of like stations with the pros, almost like mini classrooms almost, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And I was just like, man, that was for me. I was like, oh man, it worked.
Yeah. But to summarize like the effort that went into it, there were a lot of late nights. It essentially turned this podcast into a full-time job temporarily. Because we started having weekly meetings. Like we had to have a scheduled Monday morning meeting to make sure all the things were ticked off that list. Danny handled so much to do with like the styled shoots and whatnot. I was doing the editing for the promos and the graphics for the tickets and everything else that was going out. It was a
team effort.
It was a massive team effort, and it was an absolute delight. To be part of. Can't wait. Yeah. Say I can't wait to do it again, but maybe.
Maybe not just quite yet. Quite yet, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very inspiring. You're taking steps towards the goals that you want, and the goals you have in your brand, and you're working the process. And it's like I have had those moments. I had one with Nick in Arizona the first year we did a mastermind retreat, and we were sitting on these, like there were styled shoots with couches, and they had just this couch sitting in the desert, and there's
I remember that photo.
Red Rock mountains just right there. The sun is going down, and there's 100 filmmakers doing like all these styled shoots, and me and Nick are just sitting there like proud grandpas, just like, wow, look at all this. Because there is a lot of work, and you get into it and you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I was going to need to decide this, or what the flowers are going to look like, or I don't like all this stuff. That's like, I don't care. I just want people to be served well. And you're facilitating the speakers and what they're talking about, and making sure it's valuable, and making sure they're taken care of, and you're facilitating. And it takes a special kind of person to be thinking on the experience level that people are having. And you learn, you do it, and you're like, oh, well, next year we're going to do this differently. And you keep getting better and doing. And it's the same thing. And why I like digging into this on the How to Film Weddings podcast is like, maybe that's you listening and you're like, I shot log for the first time. Like that's the first, I did it. I messed up a bunch, but now I know what to do the next time. And, oh, I should hire that mentor to show me how to color grade because I just can't get the skin tones. I'm taking that step. I'm doing that thing. And then you get to a spot like where I'm at now with my color grading, where I'm just like, dude, I love the way this looks. I finally achieved that goal. And what do you know? There's another annoying thing over there that I need to get better at. And it's not color anymore. And it's my networking. And I'm like, yeah, who's doing that well? And like, there's this joy that comes from putting in the work and then reaping the benefit of that. And so I saw that, all the marketing for it. I've been watching you guys from afar, just like, man, these guys are, let's see what they do. Let's see if they stick around. And it's been fun just kind of as like people that I already know that have been through our mastermind group and different things like that of like, just, I don't know. It's like, there's a proud old guy moment on my side of just like, okay, these guys are doing it. And it's like, we want to help open the doors for other educators and people like that. And so it's really interesting to see what all's got into it. As you guys are moving forward, what are you guys thinking about into year number 2? I mean, you've got another summit coming up. You're starting to get some sponsors. You're starting to make this more, you're on the bridge towards pushing this towards a full-time gig, I'm sure. And so what does the future look like for TWVP? I said it right. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah.
So yeah, first of all, we launched the next year's summit. So we've got a pretty insane lineup for that. First of all, we've got Becky Kinross, who is an awesome kind of like home movie style kind of videographer. Uses a lot of Super 8 in her films. She's based out in Jersey in the UK. And then Shannon and Jack from Forever Curious, who are just insane. We found out about them on, it was the Make Better Wedding Films kind of editing course, and we were like, wow, these guys are like insane with like sound, and they're just unreal. So we were like, we need to get them on board. So they're on board. Then we actually have Ben Journey from the Make Better Wedding Films podcast. He's coming over as well to talk, which is awesome. And then the one that we left till last, which was Justin Porter. So we've managed to get him to come over as well, which, you know, so many people are excited about, because he's just like he's bags of energy.
Yeah, lots of people said, "Oh, how are you going to top Matt? You have to get like Justin or something." And we're like, "We'll see."
We were already talking to him at this point. Yeah. We're kind of like,
The audible gasp from the room, because again, it's just like people don't come over here, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, so that's the summit, and obviously there's going to be a few other things getting added to that. We're obviously going to announce our speaker pros, our industry pros, who are going to be at that as well, and just figure out the format, because as you said before, there are definitely tweaks that need to be made. We just need to figure out how to do that.
More headshot photographers.
More headshot photographers for sure. But in terms of TWVP, I mean, obviously the podcast is definitely going to remain weekly. We're not downgrading that. If we can think of like additional episodes to do here and there, we will fit that in, but for right now it's mainly just the weekly podcast
until we get to the like closer to the summit. And then what we do is we do like summit specials. So we'll maybe do one on like a Monday where we talk directly to maybe somebody who's going to be at the summit speaking, or one of the industry pros or something like that. But I think that's obviously, we've got a while to go. I mean, we've just under a year now until the next one. But I think probably like our next focus is maybe to look at maybe like smaller kind of meetups or smaller maybe like kind of like workshops.
More intimate settings, so that you've got, you know, not too many people there. It's a focused group. You really dive in to an individual's needs, or, you know, to answer any solution they need, because the difference between a summit and a retreat is, you know, the blanket covers everyone as much as you can in a summit, whereas a retreat, like you know, a trip away or something like that, it can really focus in. And we'd love to be able to do that for something for people over here, because often it's, you know, wild destinations and people just don't flock to it unless you're me. But that'll be stopping soon for sure. But so we want to make something like that available. We, you know, there's nothing in concrete yet, but as you know, as we grow the community, we just want to offer the community opportunities to do things that, you know, we think are really, really cool,
that are not currently, or that feel a little bit unattainable for some. Certainly over here. So yeah, we've got like a bit of a plan for it. We just need to, because we took a bit of time out, we've not really. We recorded a podcast together. What was it? When was it? Yesterday. And that's kind of like the first really, yeah, we did. That's the first we've properly kind of been back. So I feel like now that Jason is back from his last holiday of the year, we'll see. He'll probably go on another one in a couple of weeks. That we'll maybe just start chatting and getting the plans for that in place. But we've got some cool ideas. The good thing is, and the beauty of it, I guess, is that because of where we are, Scotland is almost like the destination of sorts. I think we went on a retreat ourselves, which was the
wedding
filmmaker workshop with MK Films and Runaway Vows, and that was in Ireland, and all the people obviously from the States are like, oh wow, like a castle.
Are like, yeah, I live in a castle.
And we were like, oh yeah, like we forget, because we see castles and that, we're shooting in castles all the time, we're kind of like forget that it's actually a big deal for.
There was a bagpiper at the entrance, and we're like, yeah, I hear bagpipes every Saturday.
I hear bagpipes in my nightmares. Like, it's just constantly there.
So, but you know, I think the overriding thing is that we've built a community. We're building it even bigger, and as long as we're here and we're growing and we're listening to what people want to have and the opportunities they want to have, we want to be able to supply them. So we're excited at whatever does come, but nothing is necessarily in concrete yet. But we're here to stay, and we can't wait to see what
That's
really
awesome.
does come next.
Yeah, I love all of that. And we're big supporters of other people doing podcasts. Others would be like, why are you like helping promote somebody that does something you do? It's like this industry needs more people stepping up in different parts of the world and doing what you guys are doing. And yeah, I would die if I got to see a castle. I don't know if I've ever seen a real castle in real life. So like, Ireland or anywhere, Scotland, it's like, oh my goodness. Like I've had a few opportunities that I've bid recently to do some events over in that area. And it's just like, oh God, come on, let it work out. Let's go. Yeah, it's definitely interesting to realize, oh, you're used to that. And same thing with us here in the States. It's like, yeah, that's the Grand Canyon, or yeah, that's LA or whatever it is. It's like, yeah, it's New York City. That's what that's like.
Venues that are lit really, really well, because over here a lot of the venues are not lit nearly as well,
Yeah, I mean, I famously had my first ever taco next to you.
You did.
You just get tacos here. So
yes.
like,
it was
there's differences in the world.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's cool about doing something like this. It makes the world so much smaller. I mean, without, me and Nick saying, hey, we're going to do a podcast, I would never even have known that you existed. And here you are, meeting all these new people, creating opportunities, serving the market. If people want to follow you, to connect with you, what is the best place for them to hop along before we sign off today?
Okay, so we should have thought about this in advance. But we have named our social channels the full name, which is That Wedding Videographer Podcast. And that's on Instagram. It's the same on YouTube. Find that?
It is, yeah.
It was going to be That Wedding Videographers Podcast, but that takes up 31 characters, which means we had to change all our branding. So That Wedding Videographer Podcast on Instagram, on YouTube.
The website is a little bit shorter, though. It's twvp.co.uk. So.
Yeah. So, and if you want to find out about the summit for next year as well, because you're more than welcome to come along. We'd like you all to come over. You can go to twvp.co.uk/summit.
Yep.
Yeah, and we'll put those links in the show notes and stuff like that too, so people can find it. Yeah, I'm pumped about it. Everything you guys are doing. If there's anything we can do, of course, to help with anything to help promote you guys, we're here for you. Thank you guys for taking the time to be on. Any final words before we sign off today?
No, just a big thank you for having us on in the first place, John. Obviously, like as Jace is testament to in that, obviously going through the mastermind, it's obviously like helped quite a lot. So thank you for everything you've done, I guess, in the community and stuff, because it's definitely been an inspiration. So thank you.
I think education is played a massive part in Danny and I's career. I've obviously gone through the whole how to film weddings process. I definitely credit it for advancing me years ahead. And it's we're here essentially to pay it forward. And I think people, if you're starting out, whether you're starting out or you're not, education doesn't just mean like investing in a course or something. It means talking to your community, talk to your peers, find out what they enjoy doing, find out what they don't enjoy doing, finding out if there's solutions to their problems that can help you. Build your community and get out there, and if you like someone's work, just talk to them. I think that's essentially how we got started, and here we are now.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for everything, John.
Oh man, I wasn't expecting a compliment, but I will take it. Thank you. I will receive your compliment. Thank you guys so much for being on.
No, thank
Cheers,
you,
mate.
Again, thank you, Jason and Danny, for being on the podcast. It's so fun to watch as your business grows, and we wish you nothing but the best. Before we hop off today, I do want to mention our friends over at howtofilmweddings.com/outsourcing. If you are looking to outsource your wedding films, we have actually partnered with outsourcing companies and vetted them, so you're not wondering whether or not they can do the thing that they actually say they're doing, which is editing your wedding films. They can take your projects, edit them for you, so you can deliver them in a timely manner and not get in the dreaded backlog in your business. Be sure to check out howtofilmweddings.com/outsourcing for all of the details and the full list of our approved vendors. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, we'll see you.